Hey, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be discussing the 1966 film Noire, aka Black Girl. Black Girl is often considered the first sub-Saharan African film directed by an African filmmaker to receive international acclaim. Although initially received poorly by Western audiences, around the 2010s, people started to recognize its worth after Scorsese vouched for it, and then it started to get the recognition it deserved. In the film, we follow Diouana. Diouana is a native Senegalese woman who has dreams of one day living it up in France. To do this, she seeks employment from this French couple who offers her a job as a nanny, as in her native village of Dakar, she is a caretaker of the children. And she thinks she gets her big break whenever the couple asks her to move to France with them to watch after their kids there. But tragedy ensues whenever she is mistreated both verbally and mentally. She is not talked to as a respected individual. She is not asked to do the job she was hired for, instead being forced to do every single chore, and worst of all, never being allowed to leave the house, seeing the beautiful country that she so hopes to live in, even though it's just outside her walls. This is a short movie. It's only about 59 minutes. This is a sad movie, and this is also a real movie. And by that I mean it's actually based on real events. The thing that's most striking to me in this film is Diouana's lack of dialogue. She doesn't say nothing throughout the film, mind you. There are a couple small sentences and responses here and there, but largely, she is spoken for via an internal voiceover. And that's it. That's the only voice she gets. Today, I'll be analyzing this fact and what impact it has on the film and what symbolism it might have, and what it means to say for Diouana as a whole. But first, before we get too much into the film, as always, let's talk about our director, Ousmane Sembène. Born January 1st, 1923, he is a Senegalese director, filmmaker, and producer, and he is often labeled as the father of African film. Sembène started his career as a writer, but after realizing that majority of his fellow African men couldn't read, he decided to make a visual medium, something that they could all relate to despite their illiteracy. In 1963, Sembène would produce his first short film, The Wagoneer. This would be followed shortly after in 1964 by his second film he ever produced, Noire? Excuse the poor pronunciation. This prestige would follow Sembène all the way to his final film in 2004. A little film called Moulade, or Magical Protection, that won awards at the 2004 Cannes Film Festival and even the FESPACO Film Festival in Burkina Faso. Sembène would ultimately pass away in 2007. He died in his home of Dakar, Senegal, which is, funnily enough, the home of Diouana, the protagonist of the film that we're talking about this week. Ousmane Sembène would go down as one of the greats in African cinema, and is still talked about very much today. In fact, let's get into his arguably most well-known film, La Noire, aka Black Girl. Typically, in films like these, where an audience follows a native individual who seeks to reclaim their cultural identity and make a name for themselves and have the good life that whites, cultural oppressors, imperialists have. So far, we've seen them be very outspoken. And this isn't to downplay Diouana's journey through the film. Just in comparison to, say, like Ivan in The Harder They Come, and Bouvin in The Villagers of Champigny, Diouana almost has no voice. Her lack of speech is similar to the lack of a metaphorical voice that natives or minorities are given outside of their home. Their wants, their desires, their needs, they're typically drowned out by a white voice, a more powerful voice. And that's what we see here in the film. The man of the house is constantly barking orders at Diouana. You know, never really giving her time to breathe or relax or do the things that she wants to do. Things that she was promised before moving out of her homeland. And that's just another thing, unfulfilled promises. I mean, how often in history do these stronger, more developed countries come in where they're not wanted and then start making demands and start promising things like you'll get this resource in return, or you'll get this, or you'll get that. But then they never deliver. Diouana is not rude, she is not violent. She doesn't even really speak up for herself. towards the end of the film, we see her try and physically reclaim her identity with the struggle of the mask between the madam of the house and her. But she never speaks out for herself. And it's not because she doesn't believe in herself or she's not strong enough to do so. It literally would make a difference. Because think about it, what would have happened if she did speak up? Would things have changed for her? Would things have gotten better for her? No, absolutely not. She would have been fired or she would have been ignored. So she would have either gone back to her home, her dreams are crushed, and she's back to square one, or she's still in the same exact position that she tried to speak out against. And I think this is something that a lot of minorities and Native peoples can relate to. You know, and no wonder Diawana brings up multiple times in the film that she feels trapped. You know, she can't leave the house. So yes, physically, like those four walls that she's contained in where she's just doing chores over and over again, she is physically trapped. But she's also like trapped in her mind up here. You know? She's got no friends and family, no one to talk to, no one to relate to or to respect her. So I mean, she can only spend her time up here talking to herself, her inner thoughts. She's trapped in these four walls. Because as soon as she steps out, what's going to happen? Lose it all or stay where you are in hope for a better life. And it just so happens that for Diawana, neither option was really going to work for her. The lack of a physical and metaphorical voice that natives have in colonial, post-colonial environments is unfair, unjust, and it leads to devastating outcomes for individuals' lives, as we can see with the case of Diawana. Silence brings death. If something isn't done, if a voice can't speak out and make a change, either nothing happens or something bad happens. And that's what we see in this film. That is what Uzma Sambin was trying to tell us with this film, and specifically Diawana's silence. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this week's analysis, as depressing as it may have been. And if you did, I will see you guys again next week.